All right, YouTube, I am back. You are back. It has been 2 years to the day. Today is June 12th, 2024. So, 2 years ago, since my last upload, since your last upload, since anyone uploaded or watched anything. And now I know the internet right now is just exploding with people recounting their lives over the last 24 months, all the stories, things that have been going on. The news is just beside itself, trying to get in report after report of everything that's going on. And, you know, there's a lot of information, and we're all aware of the big stuff. So we're still going to get into that. But I want to walk us backwards. I want to take us from effectively where we are right now and take us all the way back to the event because we know the highlights, but there's a lot of small stuff that I've discovered over the last week or so of just combing through the plethora of information coming out and communications with people. So, if you don't mind, just stick with me on this. I still got my trusty clipboard, didn't lose that. So, June 12th, 2024, YouTube is effectively back up online, fully functional. As far as I can tell, everything that was from 2 years ago still is. So I didn't seem to lose any subscribers. I looked at the count, 93,260 subscribers. I'm getting close to 100,000. Very happy about that. Hopefully, not, really pushing it, but hopefully I'll cross that 100,000 mark. But let's get into this. May 1st, 2024, open internet for everyone. The internet was fully up, fully functional, back, easy access the way it was before. April 18th, there was a full system purge of the cornucopia virus. That's the virus that apparently started this whole thing. Now, I don't know specifically if this is a type of computer virus that's been used before or if this is some type of amalgamation of certain things. As far as I know, everything that was said about it, it was completely cleared of all the networks. It was 1.8 million lines of code, so this was a big boy. This was something that whoever put it together spent a long time doing it. February 15th, the first full assembly of Congress met in the New DC location, and going into 2023, in November 16th, the states reconnected with the President of the United States in the New DC area, reestablished formal, I guess, order of operations, recognizing that, hey, we're putting everything back together the way that it was. We're going to make these changes, these improvements, but, everyone at this point is on board. October 5th, 2023, new policy establishes the limited communications return. That was pretty much intranet only. Those small little areas throughout the country that still manage to isolate certain pockets of their cell communications and of the actual internet going through certain nodes, they were able to maintain a certain level of operations throughout the country that helped speed the process up. July 5th, the holdouts in the enclaves, most of them were some of those small towns and regions and everything. They had denied the entry to the military that was in there to establish and basically regain control of those parts of the country. I don't know personally how it actually transpired, but I do understand that there was some sort of reconciliation or something that had occurred. In June of 2023, June 10th, the regional governance zones that were established under military control, and again, that was what preceded that whole thing. So I think it was basically some toes got stepped on and some people pushed back, and it just was what it was. March 12th, 2023, a mass migration from the Midwest to the South for food. Pretty much all the people that were holding out, living on their farms, living in those towns and cities, in those northern areas, up from the Dakotas and going across the whole area, that winter, I guess, was just too much for them. And considering that they weren't being able to grow anything, they just started heading south. Some were, walking, some were driving, but it was just, tens of thousands of people, mile upon mile, moving southwards just to get someplace else other than where they were at. February 10th, China officially annexed 6 Pacific Rim nations. Now, as far as those individual nations and what currently is going on, That it's in the news stream. It's up for debate on how it's going to be handled. As it is right now, China annexed them, and it is what it is. Can't say much more about that. Don't know much more about that. November 15th, 2022, the bio attack on DC. Everyone got evacuated. There was an estimated loss of life from people that just didn't make it out. I won't be callous and say it was in the low hundreds, but considering the number of people that live in the DC area, the low hundreds for the size of the attack is still pretty good. But that is what happened, and as far as I know, presently, DC is still a no go zone. It's under strict control, no flyovers, no drive bys, no nothing, complete isolation. I do hear that they are looking at basically sterilizing certain areas of DC that they can then reestablish control of those buildings and those blocks. But effectively, as far as day to day living, that's just not going to happen for anyone for quite a while. October 5th, major earthquake hit the New Madrid area, down through the Tennessee central region in the valley in there. It was 6.5 on the Richter scale, but lasted almost 6.5 minutes. And I know that, at that point, no one knew what was going on, and you couldn't quite tell exactly how bad it was. And, rumors and whispers and people, that passed by and coming up saying they heard from someone who heard from someone. But the damage level there was significant enough that there are whole sections within that region that are still completely, effectively isolated. The rivers literally changed course, and sections of hills and roads and everything else completely collapsed. So there are entire regions within that area that have been cut off for almost a whole year. And basically everything has to be airlifted in by helicopter and airlifted out, because there's just no safe way on the ground and even by boat to transgress those areas. 9/5, the U.S. was under full martial law. That we all know about. For the places that still had radio communications up and running, and the patrol cars that were still operating under the orders of their local police and the state police, that we all know. And a lot of the states, and we're not even going to get into, well, this state did this and this governor did that. A lot of the states shut their borders prior to this. They kind of knew this was coming, so they closed up shop, and basically, if you didn't live in the state, you weren't staying in the state, or you weren't coming through the state. But it was officially established on September 5th, 2022. August 30th, 2022. POTUS, President of the United States, activates the continuity of government plan due to missing politicians and the collapse of the infrastructure. As far as the missing politicians that they've been talking about, some of them simply, they just were in the wrong place at the wrong time, just going about their business, and they became part of the casualties that occurred. Others, I don't know if they bailed. I don't know if, there's going to be still a ransom note or letter that pops up later on, but no one's ever heard from them. A couple of them were overseas doing delegations and deliberations, and they just disappeared into the chaos that was Europe and Asia at that point in time. So again, it's a matter of, at some point in time, someone's either going to get a message out, maybe find a body, I don't know. August 18th, 2022, that massive wildfire that had started, apparently it consumed 11,260 square miles from the Midwest to the Southwest, over almost 1/5 of the U.S. due to the drought conditions in those areas. It just basically washed over acres upon acres of fields, towns, highways, you name it. It just tore through everything. August 12th, 2022, China takes Taiwan. We had heavy losses. North Korea uses nukes, and we responded. Now, everything that's still being said about that, and there's still limited information coming out from the government and everyone now that has communications, we're starting to get more pieces to that puzzle put in. But a lot of it basically ties into how China has annexed 6 countries in the Pacific Rim area due to the actions that went on. Still not exactly sure what the total numbers are, but we know that it wasn't low. August 10th, the national panic, looting, rioting. At that point, everyone here knew that things were not right and things were falling apart and that no one was in control. Basically, everything at that point had hit its maximum level of tolerance and patience. August 8th, 2022, Iran uses nukes, Israel responds. And that's pretty much all we can say about that, is that it's just a glass factory over there right now. That's the end of that discussion. Shout out to all my fellow amateur radio operators. August 7th, when all the communications dropped out from the networks on the cell towers and everything else, ham radio guys, they stepped up, opened up communication chains, kept the lines going. Military had their thing operating, but the civilians were being left in the dark at that point. But thanks to those guys, at least we knew some of the things that were going on, and it helped keep a lot of people alive. So hats off to you guys. Now, August 6th, the event. We all know it. We're all aware of it. But I'm going to skip past that and then come back to it. I'm going to go back just a couple more days for everything else that had happened just prior to that. So, August 5th, North Korea launches an attack against South Korea and Japan. Iran attacks Israel. We know the end results of that. August 4th, China mounts a large-scale maneuver on Taiwan. At that point, the maneuver everyone suspected was going to be a full-on attack, and it was. July 22nd, 2022. New viral strain of cholera spreading through the U.S. As far as I know, presently, it's still out there, it's still affecting people, but because we're able to basically get hospitals up and running, laboratories up and running, and communications and planning up and running, they've been getting a hold of it. They still had researchers trying to basically figure out what it was and why it was so virulent, but it seems to be, under control. And if you were lucky enough not to be in those areas that were heavily affected by it, then, good on you. July 15th. Now, I'll say this. I didn't vote for the guy. I didn't particularly care for the guy. But to have something like that happen the way that it did on live TV, it's just, it wasn't pleasant to watch. And even after they cut the live feed, people were still out there, people were still broadcasting, cell phones and everything else. But the POTUS had a medical emergency, and that's how they state it, medical emergency. They won't specifically say it was a stroke or an aneurysm. But, all the video and the telltale signs point to that's what it was. The vice president was sworn in as president of the United States on July 15th, 2022. July 7th, 2022, national average for gas crossed $9. At that point in time, I believe there had been maybe 60 protests nationwide, because between the 7th of July and the 15th of July, it actually went into the double digits. It went to a national average of 10.48. Most places, at least in the East Coast, gasoline was already just at $10 and had moved up to $11. I know diesel, which I used at that point in time, my truck maybe twice a month, was already above $12 a gallon. So things weren't good and people were getting irritated. Now, back up to August 6th, the event. The Great Cyber Attack is what they're officially calling it. It was the world's largest single coordinated cyber hack ever. Nothing else that has ever occurred in the history of computers and cyber warfare was ever this large. I'm going to give you the global totals, and then I'm going to give you the U.S. totals that's been read off to everyone. 78 countries, 1,122 government systems, 630 private businesses, 38 regional infrastructure sites, power plants, and power distribution areas were shut down. For a total loss of damage, they put the numbers at, take $999 trillion and multiply that by 100,000. That's the number in total loss and damage. 16.8 million people died as a result of that, because you have, power sections going off across wide areas of continents, hospitals, life support, communications, everything just denial of service or completely shut off as if, it wasn't operational. In the U.S., for us. The virus affected 12 power delivery systems throughout the country, mostly the substation transformers and some of the network nodes. 234 hospitals were affected, 361 police stations, 64 prisons, and I know that in our area, several of the prisons were affected by this. I know from what I've been seeing in videos, as an example, like Rikers Island, places like those, you had a lot of prisoners basically take advantage of what was going on, and they're still out there now. They literally have posses out looking for probably 30,000 escaped prisoners nationwide. 880 cell phone towers across the country that added to the communications problems. 439 financial institutions, small banks, credit unions, some of the large Wall Street places. Wall Street by itself, they pretty much were shut down completely. 23 federal offices, 68 state offices, 2,068 local offices, files corrupted, data's breached, information removed, information altered. They did switcheroos, take information out, change it, stick it back in, and make you think that, oh, that file wasn't touched. We had a total of 2.6 million deaths across the nation. A lot of it was people that were in hospitals on, special emergency care, people in the middle of procedures, people that were injured later on or got sick, especially from the cholera that was going around and some of the other things, because there was no available treatment for most of them. $706 trillion in loss, which, when you think about it compared to the global loss, it's a small amount. And it's not to minimize the loss of anyone, but honestly, we more or less, we dodged one. I mean, we dodged a big one, because there are some countries that they are never going to recover. They weren't first world to begin with. Now they are subpar beneath third world as the standard goes. And there are a lot of those first world nations that even if everyone, has a potluck dinner for them, they're never coming back from this. This is going to be a long-term process. I mean, we're lucky enough right now that we're able to have YouTube and just get back to communicating with each other and establishing a sort of level of norm, as it were. But that's what it was. That's been the last 2 years. I know a lot of you've gone through hell and high water, and I hope that all of you out there have been safe and that you've made it through and that you've been lucky enough to be able to come out the other side of this. But as it stands right now, we're just in the beginning stages of the rebuild, and it's going to be a long process. It's going to be a long process. It was something that I don't think anyone saw coming. No one could ever think that something like this could happen. So here we are. Anyway, catch you guys later. Alright, so I just wanted to do that because I thought switch it up, do a little bit of a change. I will say this. Completely fictional, just in case for whatever reason some of you are watching that and you're scratching your heads like, WTF, what is going on? But it just goes to the point that small little things start off now. We don't know where they're going to go later on down the road. We don't know how things are going to unfold. That's just effectively, as it were, an alternate version of certain things could happen and how they would proceed from there. And a lot of, again, what we do as preppers, what we do as individuals is we try to prepare, we try to see certain pathways that, an event could take or that certain actions could lead to. It's not a guarantee that we're always going to be able to figure things out. It's not a guarantee that even if we know that, oh, this will happen and then naturally this will occur, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes life takes a hard left and, that's just the way it is. But that's it for now. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Like, share, and subscribe. Take it easy.